In the grey waste of a dying world, a father pushes a shopping cart through ash-covered roads, his son walking beside him like a ghost made flesh. This is not apocalypse as spectacle. This is apocalypse as whisper, as breath held too long, as love measured in canned peaches and bullets saved for mercy. He woke in the woods in the dark and the cold of the night. Cormac McCarthy strips language down to bone and marrow, each word chosen like ammunition in a world where waste means death. His sentences carry the weight of prayer and the rhythm of heartbeat, irregular, urgent, essential. The punctuation falls away like leaves in nuclear winter, leaving only the pulse of human speech. The road arrives in 2006, when America wars in distant deserts and climate scientists speak in hushed tones about tipping points. McCarthy offers no comfort here, no easy metaphors. Instead, he presents the mathematics of survival. How many days between meals? How many steps before rest? How many lies before truth becomes unbearable? Born in Rhode Island in 1933, McCarthy grew up in a world still scarred by one great war and shadowed by another. His father sold insurance, protection against the unthinkable. Perhaps this is where the son learned that catastrophe lives not in the future but in the space between heartbeats, in the pause before bad news. The father's hands shake as he opens another can of fruit, the metal lid curling back like a flower blooming in reverse. These hands once held office pens, car keys, probably wedding rings. Now they know only the weight of responsibility that bends spines and breaks sleep into fragments of vigilance. McCarthy's landscape breathes with the lungs of the dead earth, ash settling like snow that never melts, trees standing like burned matches against a sky the colour of old cement. This is beauty inverted, sublime in its absolute refusal to comfort. The world has become a museum of its former self. The boy carries innocence like a burden too heavy for small shoulders. He asks questions that have no good answers. Why do we hide? Why are people mean? Why can't we help the dying man? His father's silence grows heavier with each query, each moment of moral complexity that childhood should never hold. Fire becomes the story's central metaphor, not the cleansing fire of renewal, but the guttering flame of hope held against overwhelming darkness. We're carrying the fire, the father tells his son, and the phrase becomes both prayer and promise, both truth and desperate lie told to keep walking forward when forward seems impossible. The shopping cart squeaks through McCarthy's prose like a mechanical heartbeat, wheels turning against pavement cracked by unknown catastrophe. This chariot of survival carries their entire world: blankets, food, the pistol with 2 bullets, and the accumulated weight of everything they've lost and everything they fear to lose. Cannibalism lurks in the margins of every encounter, every house they enter, every stranger they glimpse through smoke and ash. The ultimate taboo becomes daily possibility, the line between human and animal blurred by hunger that gnaws at more than just the stomach. Morality becomes luxury when survival demands simplicity. McCarthy's religious upbringing seeps through the narrative like water through cracked foundation. God becomes absence defined by presence, prayers offered to silence that answers with silence. The father's faith dies somewhere between the first page and the last, leaving only the religion of love for his son. The boy's cough echoes through the wasteland like a clock counting down to endings nobody wants to name. Each hack and wheeze reminds the father that time moves forward even when the world has stopped, that bodies betray us even when we need them most. Medicine becomes memory, healing becomes hope deferred. Women disappear from McCarthy's world like smoke from dying fires. The mother's suicide becomes the story's absent centre, the choice that haunts every decision the father makes. She chose her own ending rather than wait for the world to choose for her. Her absence shapes the narrative like negative space-defined sculpture. The father's memories surface like oil on water, iridescent, beautiful, and utterly useless for the business of staying alive. He remembers a world of plenty, of waste taken for granted, of problems that now seem quaint as children's games. These memories become torture disguised as treasure. Blood appears throughout the narrative like punctuation marks in a sentence written in flesh. It pools on floors, stains clothing, marks the passage of violence through a world where violence has become the only reliable constant. Each drop tells a story of survival purchased with somebody else's ending. The ocean, when they finally reach it, disappoints like a broken promise. Grey water meets grey sky in a marriage of indifference, waves lapping at shores littered with debris of civilization. The father promised his son the sea, but delivery falls short of dreams built on memory and hope. McCarthy strips dialogue down to its essential components: questions and answers, pleas and refusals, the basic transactions of human communication when everything else has been burned away. His characters speak in the telegraphic language of emergency, each word chosen for maximum efficiency and minimum waste. The father's protective instincts sharpen to weapon-like precision. He reads danger in footprints, in the way smoke rises from distant fires, in the quality of silence that might hide approaching threats. Love transforms into hypervigilance, tenderness into tactical thinking that never rests, never relaxes its grip on possibility. Food becomes sacrament in McCarthy's world, each meal a communion with the ghost of plenty. The father and son share beans from rusty cans with the reverence of priests dispensing holy wine. Hunger sanctifies everything, transforms the mundane into the miraculous through the simple fact of scarcity. The boy's moral compass points toward compassion in a world that punishes such luxury. He wants to help the struck down, to share food with the starving, to trust the untrustworthy. His father must repeatedly choose between nurturing this goodness and protecting the child who carries it like a target painted on his back. Sleep becomes warfare in McCarthy's landscape. The father divides each night into shifts of watchfulness and rest, never allowing both of them to sleep simultaneously. Dreams become dangerous territory where guard drops and enemies might approach. Even unconsciousness requires strategy in a world where relaxation means death. The pistol weighs more than its physical materials suggest. It carries the weight of final choices, of love expressed through the promise of mercy when mercy becomes necessary. The father checks the bullets like a rosary, counting the means to spare his son from endings too terrible to endure. McCarthy's sentences breathe with the rhythm of King James Bible, of Gerard Manley Hopkins, of Walt Whitman singing America when America still believed in its own song. His prose carries the weight of literary tradition, even as it describes the death of the world that created such tradition. The ash falls like snow that never melts, covering everything in grey uniformity that erases distinction between sacred and profane, between the important and the forgotten. This ash becomes McCarthy's most persistent character, the constant reminder that something burned here, something ended here, something died here and left only powder. The father's illness progresses like a secondary narrative, his body failing as his spirit fights to maintain the fiction of protection. Blood appears in his cough, strength ebbs from his limbs, but his will remains focused on the single task of keeping his son alive long enough to find something better than survival. Light becomes precious beyond measure in McCarthy's world. The father hoards batteries like gold coins, rationing illumination against the darkness that presses against them from all sides. Even the weak glow of dying flashlights becomes luxury, hope made visible in the form of photons cutting through apocalyptic night. The boy's questions pierce through the father's careful constructions of meaning like arrows finding gaps in armor. "Are we going to die?" he asks with the directness of childhood, and the father must answer with words that comfort without lying, that reassure without promising what cannot be delivered. Animals vanish from McCarthy's world like withdrawn blessings, their absence more noticeable than their presence ever was. No birds sing, no insects buzz, no small creatures rustle through underbrush. The silence grows thick with the weight of missing life, ecosystem collapsed into grey uniformity. The father's love becomes a kind of madness, a fever that drives him forward when logic suggests stopping, when body demands rest, when hope seems nothing more than cruelty disguised as virtue. This love burns like the fire they carry, consuming everything it touches, including the man who carries it. The boy's trust in his father becomes the story's most fragile treasure, more delicate than their few possessions, more essential than their meagre supplies. This trust must be earned daily through actions that balance protection with honesty, safety with truth, survival with the preservation of whatever makes survival worthwhile. McCarthy's punctuation disappears like social conventions in a world where politeness serves no survival function. His sentences run together like thoughts in a fevered mind, like prayers spoken too quickly, like words that carry too much weight to pause for comma or period. The prose becomes breathless, urgent, alive. The father's prayers take the form of bargaining with a God who seems to have abandoned not just the world, but the very concept of divine intervention. Please, he thinks, let me live long enough. Let me be strong enough. Let me be wise enough. Let me love enough to keep this child alive. The boy's dreams offer the only escape from the grey uniformity of their waking world. In sleep he might see colours that no longer exist, taste foods that have vanished, feel warmth that has been abolished. His father guards these dreams like treasure, like the last inheritance he can provide. The father's memories of the boy's mother become both comfort and torture, love preserved in amber that cuts when touched. She exists now only in the genetic echo of her son's features, in the moral questions that would have been hers to answer if she had stayed to answer them. The ending approaches like winter, inevitable, visible from distance, terrible in its promise of change. The father's strength fails in increments, his protection weakening like a fire running out of fuel. The boy must learn to be brave without learning to be hard, to survive without losing the fire they carry. McCarthy's vision extends beyond the personal apocalypse to encompass the death of language itself, the way meaning erodes when reference points disappear. Words like democracy and civilization become archaeological artifacts, museum pieces in a world that has forgotten what they meant when they still mattered. The boy's survival depends not just on physical endurance, but on maintaining some essential human quality in a world that has forgotten what humanity means. He must learn to be suspicious without becoming cynical, to be careful without becoming cruel, to be strong without becoming hard. The father's greatest fear is not death, but the possibility that his son might become the kind of person who could survive in this world, that survival might require the sacrifice of everything that makes survival meaningful. He fights to save the boy's soul while training him to live without mercy. McCarthy's prose achieves a kind of terrible beauty, like sunrise over ruins or music played while cities burn. The language carries the weight of elegy, of prayer, of love song written in a language that the world has forgotten how to speak. Beauty persists even when it serves no purpose. The fire they carry burns beyond the final page, beyond the end of the story, beyond the limits of the book itself. It burns in readers who close the cover and walk back into a world that suddenly seems fragile, precious, worthy of protection. McCarthy's greatest achievement is not showing us the end, but teaching us to recognize the beginning.